It's the WWJ Industry Connected Podcast, a monthly podcast devoted to the groundwater industry produced by the National Groundwater Association. I'm your host, Mike Price, and today we're joined by Billy Spence, Product Manager for Drilling Supplies for 2M Company, Western Hydro, and Gicon in Venus, Texas. We cover trends in drilling, fighting complacency to stay safe, workforce development, and more. Welcome to the 8th episode of the WWJ Industry Connected Podcast, a monthly podcast devoted to the groundwater industry. I'm Mike Price, Senior Editor of the National Groundwater Association's Water Well Journal Trade Magazine, and today I'm with Billy Spence, Product Manager for Drilling Supplies for 2M Company Incorporated, Western Hydro, and Gicon in Venus, Texas, a role he's had since October of 2021. Billy has 20 plus years of drilling experience in the water well industry and is well versed in mud and air rotary and experience with the Gardner Denver Double, Speedstar 30K, Versadrill V2000, Shram T90, and Atlas Copco RD20 and TH60. Thanks for joining us, Billy.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. Good, sir. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and what a typical day looks like for you on the road?
So my background is I started out in the drilling business in my late teens, early 20s. Drilled kind of all over the state of Texas for a couple of different outfits. And in 2021, I got an opportunity. Buzz Mills from Headwaters called me and asked me if I would be interested in being a product manager for 2M Company, Gicon, and Western Hydro. I really had no idea. I've been in the field my whole life on what it was. So with COVID and everything that was going on, I was like, well, let's try something a little different. I would have to say it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. Greatest group I've worked with in a long time. But what I handle is all the drilling supplies. So we're kind of known as a pump supply company. And a lot of manufacturers and stuff had asked them over the years, hey, can we'd like y'all to sell our stuff. You have customers that are using our stuff. So they dabbled in it a little bit over the years, but never really was terribly strong in it. So they decided to bring on a product manager that just deals in that. And day to day, I go from basically branch to branch. We got over 30 branches in the Western United States. So I work with our territory sales reps and kind of teach them about the drilling product and kind of a little bit of knowledge to help them with the customer on drilling supplies and what we can provide.
Very cool. And so you've known Buzz for quite a while prior to joining?
Actually, I never even knew who the guys were. I got a phone call one day and somebody had given them my number and they asked me if I'd be interested in it.
Okay.
And we went on an interview process and it was a very strenuous interview. It was like 2 days.
Put you through the ringer, huh?
Yeah, it was, yes, for sure.
So you said the Western United States is the region you cover.
Yes. So basically, Texas, New Mexico, and kind of go west from there, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Utah, California, Arizona. I'm all over the place.
And on the road a bit all the time. Yeah. So how's it been so far in your role? And what are you hearing most from customers these days?
So what I'm hearing from customers, it's the first 2 years here, it's been really good. The industry has just been wide open like we've never seen before. Like I remember back in drilling, you would go drill a few wells and then you'd have a day or two to get a rig or something. But the last couple of years, there's no maintenance time really or anything. It's just go to work. It seems like now it's starting to slow down and get back to pre-COVID, kind of more of a norm. And I'm seeing backlogs that aren't as full as they were because we had guys that were a year or two out and it seems to be anywhere from a couple months to 6 months out now with most of our contractors we're dealing with on the backlogs. So the industry seems like it's kind of caught back up with itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Giving guys a little bit of a breather, huh?
A little bit, I would say, and it's probably needed a little bit in the industry.
Like you
Because
said, maintenance. Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
think what you get, and sometimes is you get a lot of fly by night companies that come out and just are trying to grab dollars instead of making quality.
Right. We don't want that.
No, for sure. And and that's one thing we really strive over here is quality.
And which are the top questions you generally get while you're on the road, talking with customers?
So a lot of customers, it's funny now because a lot of customers are asking, "Hey, how backlogged is this customer over here? How backlogged?" We're starting to see a lot of that, and then I get a lot of customers ask, "We didn't ever know you even provided that service," and most of the customers that we've talked to and tell that we provide this drilling services now, products,
Yeah.
are really receptive and seem to take on to it pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, with just the way contractors work and time is money, how does this motivate you in your role with your current role and trying to provide the best service?
That's a good question, because coming out of the field and coming over to a company like this is a lot of drillers don't know how much extra education that these manufacturers will provide for them. I really had no idea the training and stuff on certain products that you can do or have training on at really no cost to the contractor. These manufacturers provide this stuff. So that's one of my jobs, is to go out and really educate the customer on the product. And when I'm educating the customer on the product, it's getting them more efficient to save time and money.
What's the latest product that you've trained a customer on?
We do a lot with hammers, and I do a lot with mud, or drilling fluids. I shouldn't say mud, drilling fluids. That's probably my top two categories right there.
Right there.
And we've got it,
yeah.
We've got it down to where we can bring hammers out, break them down, put them back together, show the customer how they're working, that type of stuff. And we also do like tailgate mud classes on the rig if we need to be, or we can do it at their offices. There's quite a few different options that we do on that.
Good deal. And the trends that you're seeing in the field, do you have any that come to mind?
Yeah, so like some areas in the Western United States are really busy right now, and then some areas are really slow. It seems like when you get to like the far west, California seems to be a little slower than a lot of places, I would say. And just the backlog's not there like it was a year ago, if that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that has a lot to do with the interest rates and everything. People just not holding on to their wallets a little tighter.
Right. Well, let's jump into a question I'm curious to get your thoughts on. And we were chatting off air. It is region specific, but for guys who are considering or have transitioned to a top head rig from a table drive rig, what are some of the considerations that you'd tell a customer who's switching?
Efficiency, really. I think you can get quite a bit more efficient depending on the rig specific for the area, that you can get more efficient a lot of times with the top drive, because most of your top drive rigs at this day and age have a mud pump and air on them. So it gives you a little more diversibility on what you can do. As far as like with the table rig, you don't really have a whole lot of ability to go in there in tight spots and clean your hole up sometimes, where a top drive, you can really get in there and clean the hole up. And then I would say I prefer a top drive over a table rig just for safety. You're not having to put slips in your hands right down in there. Most of your stuff has slide wrenches and things like that. It's just I feel safer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but I'm a top drive guy. That's mainly what I've done. I've worked on a few table rigs, and it's just not my forte.
Uh-huh.
I believe top drive's kind of the way of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've always looked at is, like, if you look at the oil field and kind of where they go with things, and they've switched all their rigs over to just about top drives.
Okay. How recent has that been in the oil field, would you say?
I'd say in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good. And a lot of people might disagree, but they're a trendsetter in our business, because they do a lot of stuff that that's how y'all are doing it now. And we can copy some of that stuff in our industry, even though it's two totally different industries. I don't want to act like it's oil field, because it is a total different industry on what we do, but some of their techniques work for us.
Mm-hmm. And like the troubleshooting with drilling out of problems and stuff, out of issues with the top head drive versus a table drive, it's the versatility. Can you speak on some of the operational benefits?
Yeah. So like when you're stuck in the hole on a table rig, you can't really, you got your Kelly, and you can't really rotate your table or anything, even on a top drive when you get stuck. But you got a little more versatility on being able to go up and down with your drill pipe and pump. Because if you're got your trip blocks on or something on your Kelly rig and you get stuck, it's act of Congress to get back up there to get able to pump. Where a top drive, you can just reach over, kick your mud pump or your air in, and work and start that way, and not have to jump through a bunch of hoops trying to pump down hole.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned safety with a top head drive. Looking at your past drilling life, how did the tailgate talks go when you were drilling, and what's some top advice you have for a new or veteran driller?
Complacency.
Mm.
That is probably the biggest thing in the industry. You get so complacent on what you're doing on a daily basis that you can let one little thing slip. One of my biggest deals is hard hats. I go to so many rigs that people don't have hard hats on, and I've drilled a few wells, and just sitting there, you're on some hard drilling, you're just sitting there. I've seen stuff just literally fall out of the derrick, just a little bolt or something. If that hits you in the head, that's a huge deal. I'm a firm believer in hard hats and safety glasses. That's the two keys right there. And when you're messing with any kind of PSI, whether it's water or air, there's stuff blowing around. So you got to have eye protection. And then the other thing people don't think, and we see it all the time on water road guys, is the most dangerous thing we do every day is get in a vehicle and drive to that job.
Yeah.
That is the most dangerous thing. It's more dangerous than working on the job.
Right.
So, and you get complacent because that's something you do every day. So you really got to take in account just to and from.
Mm-hmm.
But complacency is probably the biggest deal in the industry, would be mine. You just got to go over the small things in detail all the time and just keep it in focus.
Would you have a tip or trick up your sleeve to try to get guys' attentions at these tailgate talks to keep it fresh or interesting?
I wouldn't say I got any tips or trips or anything. I would just say you just got to keep it. It's kind of like the broken record deal. You just got to keep it in the back of your head every day. I know it's just monotonous over and over and over, but it's something that you're doing over and over, and you just got to pay attention.
Yeah.
To everything.
Right.
At all times.
Right.
And you got to go over it daily, because a lot of the times you just get complacent and forget about it. And we got one of our mud vendors is really great about whenever they start a meeting, no matter what it is, they always start with a safety meeting. And I credit them. I said something to them the other day, and I'm like, man, that's just awesome. I've been to so many of y'all's meetings, and no matter if it's in an office or in a field setting, we are starting out with some just little safety deal, but it gets you kind of thinking.
Yeah, that's excellent. And prior to 2M, you managed multiple drilling crews in communication with consultants from various companies. Let's get into, that experience you had there. What can you share about how you managed your drilling crews and communication advice that you?
So that's a deep subject right there, because that is one of the toughest things in the industry is finding credible people that you can send out to a drill rig. It's, for one, not going to tear it up, that understands what we got going on, and then being responsible. And that goes to the whole labor shortage deal we've got. Managing it, you just got to stay on top of it with your guys and really just make a conversation every day on what you're doing. Just go into the fine details of what the job scope is every day with each rig. And the longer your guys get there, the better they get, if that makes sense, on kind of working. So it takes a little while to get a bunch of guys together and actually get them to work as a team. But you just got to really just stay with them and stay on top of them and make sure everything's going. And dealing with the consultants, because consultants have one idea and drillers have another idea. So you got to bring them two together. If anybody's ever dealt with consultants and stuff, it's the consultants got a little better over the years, but a lot of guys read out of a book and are telling the driller, oh, this is what it says here. But in reality, the driller knows this is really how it's going to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you just got to, and every individual is different. So that's the hardest thing, is every individual is different. So you got to work with multiple personalities, and you can ride some guys hard, and then some guys in this day and age you can't ride at all, or feelings get hurt. You know how it goes.
Sure. And you mentioned the workforce development, the labor shortage in our industry. How does the industry recruit the next generation of workers and training them up?
So you know how you were talking about trends?
Yeah.
So when I first started in this business back in 98, 99, if you were like in the drilling business, it was kind of just one of them jobs. Oh yeah, he's just a driller, or just works on a rig. Well, in the last 20 years, that is really, I think, took a turn that, oh wow, they drill water, that's essential now. That's one thing we have to have. So it is totally changed on that aspect. And I think our contractors are starting to see that we can charge for things. So instead of being always the cheapest out there, they're starting to pay labor. And that's the main deal. That's one of the things I see is everybody's like, oh, can't find no labor, but you got to pay the labor. Right. That's one of the biggest things I see. And the $10 an hour deal doesn't work anymore, especially when you're getting into a seasoned trade deal where if you really get deep into this industry, there's not a whole lot of a whole lot of tradesmen in this industry. It's very trade specific, and there's no SOP to go out and open a book and this is how you drill a water well. There is books out there, but you have to go out and absolutely do it and get a feel for it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But with the labor, I always hear, and this is a funny thing I hear, is oh man, there's no younger guys coming up in the generation. It's just all these older guys are sorry. I do see a little bit of that, but I'm also seeing a younger trend come in of guys that are really grasping it, and they seem to be pretty good businessmen. And I see a good future here.
That's encouraging for sure.
Yeah. And it's not as much as you would like to see, but there's younger guys out there learning the trade and learning it right. And then, of course, you always got the fly-by-nighters that are just trying to get dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would say them guys get weeded out pretty quick. They don't last very long, and most of the guys care legitimately about what we do on service in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, that transfer of knowledge, the training component is really challenging in our industry. Have you heard of guys, any success stories of kind of bridging that knowledge gap a bit?
I think going back 20 years ago, everything was a big secret, right? And now you got the internet and anybody can Google whatever. Right. So I think that has changed the industry a little bit, where you have older guys starting to really help the younger generation because they're seeing different trends in the market where, wow, we better start teaching somebody or we're going to have a problem here. Mm-hmm. So most of your really successful businesses are really good about training their people and trying to help them with as much knowledge as possible, I would say. Yeah. So I think the industry's headed in the right direction in some aspects. It's just finding guys that'll stick around, and you have to take care of your employees now. That's the main deal that I see, is companies that retain employees at this day and age really take care of their employees. And that should be a standard that everybody follows by. Right.
Right. Well, that's a good way to end things here. Billy, is there anything else you want to share on the topic of workforce development?
I would think that's about all I got on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again for your time today. And I appreciate it and all the wisdom and information you've shared today. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the WWJ Industry Connected Podcast. We'll be back next month with a brand new episode. So be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the major platforms, so it will be easy to find us. And visit waterwelljournal.com for the latest expert columns, feature articles, videos, and news covering the groundwater industry. So one more time for Billy and I, thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.